Well, hello everybody. We're going to work through the review today, and we're going to work through the first few problems. So the first thing is supplementary, and it's asking you to find the following. So supplementary is when we have angles that add up to be 180. Why am I angles that add to be 180 degrees, and they can be either two angles that are next to each other that add to be 180 degrees, or they could be a linear pair, and that would be a way to define supplementary angles. Complementary angles are angles that add to be 90 degrees. And so they can be two angles that make a 90-degree angle and are splitting the angle, and they don't have to be congruent, or they can be two angles that are next to each other that equal 90 degrees. Collinear points are points on the same line. Points on the same line. All right. And so basically, if I had 3 points that make a line, and I can draw a straight line through them, that makes them collinear points. Coplanar points are points that are on the same plane. And so if I had a plane drawn, they do not want to be collinear, so those 3 points would be coplanar. All right, now we're going to talk about some symbols here. Perpendicular symbol is an upside down T that makes a right angle. Parallel lines, we draw 2 parallel lines, 2 vertical lines. Congruent is an equal sign with a little squiggly line over the top. And similar is like congruent without the little squiggly line, or just a little squiggly line without the equal sign. All right, so then we are going to define some angles here. And alternate interior angles are angles like, I'll give you an example. Alternate interiors are angle C and angle F, and angle D, and angle E. All right, and so alternate interior angles, if you look at them, D and E, and C and F, well, those 2 angles are congruent to each other. When we have a pair of adjacent angles are any 2 angles that are next to each other. So any 2 angles that are next to each other would be like E and G, angle E and angle G. Or another example would be like angle B and angle D. And those 2 angles, if you look at them, E and G are consecutive, and D and B are consecutive. It looks like they make a straight line, so those angles would be supplementary. All right, our next one, a pair of corresponding angles. A pair of corresponding angles are angles that are in the same relative position on the same side of the transversal. So example of that would be angle G and angle A, or angle G and angle C. These angles are corresponding angles, and so therefore there are a bunch of pairs of these guys. So I'm not going to list them all. And another pair of consecutive angles might be like angle B and angle F. All right, those guys right there. And what you may notice about these angles is that since they're in the same relative position compared to the parallel lines, they will end up being congruent to one another. All right, and then the next ones are vertical angles. And vertical angles are angles that are across a diagonal where it makes an X. So that would be an example of like angle G and angle F. Those guys would be vertical angles. And there's a whole bunch of pairs of these, but I'm just going to list a couple. And then maybe angle C and angle B. And if you notice, since they kind of make this X, and we've talked enough about vertical angles, these angles are congruent to one another. And then the last one is consecutive exterior angles. And consecutive exterior angles are angles like A and G. Angle A and angle G are consecutive exteriors, and angle H and angle B are consecutive exteriors, and these guys are supplementary to one another. All right, moving along then into our next example. This one, they're asking us to find the measure of ABD, which is this angle right here, And so they gave us that ABC is 102 degrees. And so with that being 102 degrees, then we know that these two angles are going to add up to be 102 because ABC is 102. So I'm going to take 3x plus 1 plus 4x minus 3 and set that equal to 102. Combining like terms, 7x minus 2 equals 102. Add 2. 7x equals 104. And then when I divide, I'm going to divide 104 by 7, and I get 14.85. So divide by 7. X equals 14.85. We're going to call it 14.9 is fine. And so then if I want to find ABD, I'm going to put in angle ABD will equal 3 times 14.9. That's a 4. 14.9 plus 1. So when I calculate that, I end up with angle ABD is equal to 45.7 degrees. All right, and that's really what we're looking for this one. All right, in the next one, we are talking about, it says that point B lies between A and C. So I'm going to put a point here. We'll call this side A, this side C, and point B is somewhere between them. It doesn't tell us it's in the middle or anything like that, so I can put it anywhere on the line. And it tells me that AB is 19 and AC is 39. And so when I solve for this BC, which is what I'm looking for, I'm going to say 19 plus X equals 39. And if I subtract 19 across the equal sign, X comes out to be 20, which that is the length of BC. BC is 20. All right, and finally, on the last one, they're telling us that HF bisects EHG. And if HF bisects it, then that means that cuts it into 2 equal pieces. So we know that these two angles are equal to one another that I marked in red, so because of the term bisect, and so therefore I can set them equal to each other. So 9x plus 3 will equal 13x minus 25, and if I kind of move, I'm solving this algebraically, I can get x, and then I can find EHF. So I'm going to subtract 9x across the equal sign. I'm left with 3 equals 4x minus 25. Add 25 across the equal sign, and so then I end up with 4x equaling 28, and if I divide by 4, x comes out to be 7. All right, so that's the value of x, but I don't want x, I want EHF, and EHF is, so angle EHF is 9 times 7 plus 3, which 9 times 7 is 63 plus 3, so angle EHF comes out to be 66 degrees. All right, we will work more on the rest of these.